French lawmakers vote to ban social media use by under 15s. This starts out legislation which also bans mobile phones in high schools would make France the second country after Australia to take such a step. French lawmakers have passed a bill that would ban social media use by under 15s, a move championed by President Emmanuel Macron as a way to protect children from excessive screen time. The lower National Assembly adopted the text by a vote of 130 to 21 in a lengthy overnight session from Monday to Tuesday. It will now go to the Senate, France's upper house, ahead of becoming law. The legislation, which also provides a ban on mobile phones in high schools, would make France the second country to take such a step following Australia's ban for under 16s in December. As social media has grown, so is concern that too much screen time is harming child development and contributing to mental health models. And so my big question coming out of this, I think, is how they plan to enforce this. Because we've talked a lot in the past about age verification, and I know this is a huge issue in Australia right now, as I mean, this article doesn't mention that, but they're the first country to really take an approach like this, banning not only like very young children, but teenagers from social media. That's very challenging to do without these invasive age verification things that we have always been very against, because age verification and ID verification, it's not just a matter of like affecting children. It forces everyone who's signing up for these platforms to be verified, which includes adults. So there's no opt-out process here. And that's a very dangerous privacy concern, how these IDs are going to be implemented in the first place, I think, and also what data is going to be shared with all of these platforms. That's something that we'll have to keep an eye on. So
this is something I harp on a lot personally. Is like, I think we need better tech literacy in general worldwide,
yeah,
at least in the basics. I'm not saying everybody needs to know how to code and self-host their own everything, but just to understand. A lot of these politicians just think like, oh, that's a technical problem and we'll find a solution. And it's like, no, there is no solution. There is no magic bullet.
yeah.
Technology is not magic.
I feel like on this show, we've talked quite a bit about age verification and these ID verification problems. And I would definitely encourage people, like, if you are unfamiliar with some of this topic, to check out the interview that you did with Taylor Lorenz, because I think you really covered a lot of good stuff. That was more focused on how that's going to affect the US and some legislation that's going on, but it really does apply to all of this stuff going on around the world. We see it not just in France and Australia, but like the UK, for example, has very strict ID verification laws. It's becoming a real problem.
It's tough because like I don't want to take away the autonomy of the parents to make those choices, but that's also a lot of work for people who work full time and may not necessarily have the tech skills. And
I think what we've seen in society is that this isn't a problem that only affects children. And personally, I don't think that children are significantly worse off than anyone else who's constantly being exposed to these social media algorithms. And so from this perspective, like, we have food regulation, we have clean water regulation. Could we have algorithmic regulation that applies to all of these users of the platform to protect ourselves in general as a society against the harms of social media? I think that that could be an approach. And I think we're focusing on children because children are, growing up in this, and it's preventing them from like building the skills that they need to survive in adult society, unfortunately, that like adults already have. But beyond that, like, I think the harms to all people are pretty apparent by social media. And I think that some social media platforms like Mastodon, for example, demonstrate that building communities that you can interact with in a more healthy way, it's possible. And I think that regulation on that front, which would make these big tech companies more like Mastodon, for example, and Mastodon isn't the perfect social media, by the way, but it's a direction that we could go in. We need to, I think, get back to the internet being a place where we share information and we share knowledge, and make it less of a place where we just consume whatever the overlords of the internet have put on the screen in front of us, right? Banning algorithms like that is really a lot like, enforcing clean food and water regulations in that sort of thing. Like, it's a public health issue at the end of the day. Bans like this are overly simplistic,